Guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, I do talk about the viewer's pick of the week at the end of the video. So in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured in the video, or in next week's video. But let's get started. I had 9 comics, so let's get into it. That's a pretty small haul for me. Actually, there was 2 books that are supposed to come out, but moved to next week, and it looks like next week's going to be a pretty big haul. But we're actually going to jump right into the topic of the video, because number 9 for me is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 52. I think it was yesterday, Zeb Wells announced that he is not continuing his run of Spider-Man post-September. That is going to be the end of the run, which honestly, this has been a pretty lengthy run. He was one of the voices actually in the previous run of Spider-Man as well. And I feel like everything I haven't enjoyed about this run is in this issue. So I'll talk about the issue as a whole, and then I'll talk about the main topic. But this issue, we get to see Peter Parker is Green Goblin, and it lasts a total of 2 issues. There's not much character work that is done here. There are random characters that show up, like Chasm and Miss Marvel, that just do not fit in this narrative. Honestly, it just feels really all over the place without any build-up. And that kind of leads me into the finale of what this run is building towards, which is Tombstone vs. Spider-Man, which was supposed to be this big story with Gang War. And Gang War really was fizzled out. You know, Tombstone didn't really feel like a big menace in this. He also was kind of weaving in and out of the book. And honestly, I just don't really know what this book is building up to, which makes me a bit sad that it's ending the run on such a simmer without it being like, look, this big thing we're working on, this is the finale. At least in the previous run with Nick Spencer, as much as we all didn't love the Kindred stuff, at least was building towards something with Kindred, even if you were disappointed with the reveals. And I am curious to see who's going to take over Spider-Man, but at the same time, I think ever since Dan Slott's run, which did change a lot for Spider-Man, Marvel's just been trying to find its grasp of what is Peter Parker and how do we keep him in the status quo with still making interesting stories, and that latter part I just don't feel like they've been doing. And I feel like no matter what writer has joined, the structure of Spider-Man has been the same. I feel like they haven't allowed the voice of that creator to really shine, and I think that's been really the big detriment of Amazing Spider-Man compared to something we'll talk about later like Ultimate Spider-Man. And it makes me curious, after releasing Ultimate Spider-Man, they going to be like, oh, this has a distinct palette, distinct voice. Maybe we'll do that with our flagship as well. Or maybe it'd be kind of interesting if Hickman does both. That'd be really crazy. I don't think that's going to happen. Or, you know, Chip Zdarsky was supposed to take over Spider-Man a while back. That could be an interesting person as well. But then he's also doing Batman. Would that be the first time the Batman writer and Spider-Man writer would be the same person? But, you know, also I just want to maybe someone who's never worked on Spider-Man before to kind of shine, and just a very different voice for this character. I just think it needs something new, and I think we all know that about Spider-Man, and we just don't know what that is for Amazing Spider-Man. So, yeah, I haven't been loving this run, but I hope it's something for the future. So that's my review of this issue, but also the news of Spider-Man. So let's jump into number 8 for me, which is Misery issue 1. I never really got into Spawn as a character. I don't really know much about Spawn besides the bare bones of the character. But I always want to jump on because I feel like everyone who's been reading Spawn and into this universe, A, they're not paying that much, and B, they seem like they're having fun with the universe. And for me, every single time I try to jump in, it's not really new reader friendly, and that's what this felt like. It's the daughter of Spawn, I believe, daughter of one of the characters from Spawn, and she has definitely stories that have dealt with in the previous volumes, and she's kind of trying to adjust to whatever has happened to her. And I really like the artwork for this one, but I felt like the writing was a little stiff here, especially for a young adult teenage girl character. I just felt like some of the language felt forced and a little weird, if I'm being honest. There's like one part where the character's like, come on, girlfriend, let's go. And the way it sounded like, it was just like, oh, I don't think I know a person in their young 20s or teenage years would not really say that. So it just felt very dated to me. But the artwork, I think, really helped this book a bit, but it did not give me enough, as someone who doesn't know anything about Spawn, to read more. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7. which is Nightwing, issue 115. We are wrapping this story up. I will say, if you've been loving Nightwing, you will continue to love this. There's a lot of the similar layers of Heartless, those characters finally coming to a head, but it's mostly an action issue. You get a little bit more information about the villain, but overall, as someone who's not been enjoying that side of Nightwing, I more like the interactions between Barbara and Dick, and this was just more of that action type issue without revealing too much about the villain. It just, for me, the plot itself has not entertained me enough for this to be a wow issue, but it really just depends on how much you've been enjoying Nightwing or not, and I've kind of been in the middle with this series, but the artwork is always really, really solid. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, another book that is ending soon, and that is the Sensational She Hulk issue 9. What I liked about this one was the Avengers aspect, honestly. I like the ending where She Hulk has to make the decision, is she going to join the Avengers again, how she feels about her position in the Avengers, and how that relates to her relationship with Jack of Hearts, because obviously the long history with Jack of Hearts and the Avengers. The stuff I didn't love was actually more towards the beginning and middle of the issue, where I feel like it's trying to squeeze a lot of slice of life aspects that just didn't have enough room for a penultimate issue. And maybe we didn't know when the series was going to end, and in that type of situation we don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but they definitely feel like they were squeezing a lot for this issue that just didn't have the room to be squeezed in, with this being the penultimate. But I love the emotions. I especially love the art style for this. I think it just fits so well for this book, and obviously just having collaborators who have worked with each other for a long time really helps bring that emotion and vibrance to the book. So I'm giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Batman issue 149. This is an end of an era. Almost feels like an end of a run, but it's not. Chip Zdarsky's still continuing his run. We are going to take a break for Absolute Power, but also looks like that's only going to be an issue. So it's this weird position of Batman, maybe because they are changing editorial teams here. That's why we're getting a little bit of a new voice. But the parts I didn't like was that one foot in the other era of this Czar character, which I've never really enjoyed. But the other half was the promise of something new, a new mansion, the family being at the center, and Bruce kind of being a little bit more softer in this issue. And I like the art. I thought that was solid. I think the promise of where this is going to go is really what I liked about it. And I'm curious to see what that means for Batman, because again, it's the same creative team, but it does feel like there's going to be a very new voice for this series. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Ultimate Spider-Man issue 6. This is a little lower than usual. I still love this book. There's some really, really fun moments here. We get to see Green Goblin and Peter team up, but it's mostly an exposition issue or a look back issue as Peter tells his family that he's Spider-Man pretty much, and they find out in a way I felt like that could have been smoother. So we get to see daughter, she says that, oh, daddy's a superhero, and everyone's like, what's going on? He has this big shiner on him, and he tells a story of how he gets bruised, and then MJ, it's like, oh, I didn't know you were a superhero, but I'm cool with it. And I, obviously as someone who's seen so much conflict with MJ and Peter, I don't want them to have like this huge fight that ends their relationship, but I also think you need conflict. It honestly felt a little too perfect in the end. It's like, oh yeah, you kept this big secret from me, but that's cool. So I feel like that drama and conflict could have been a little better in this. So there's a lot of things that they had to explain in this issue that just felt convenient. And honestly, the secret in general has probably been the only negative of this series, where I'm like, why is he keeping it a secret? Why is his daughter the only person that knows? So that's why this was a little bit of a weaker issue for me, but I think it at least fixes some things that have been a little bit of an issue in the series. But if you're looking for some good action, this is still a pretty well-balanced issue, as you still get to see Green Goblin and Peter fight Kingpin. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Uncanny Valley issue 3, another really wonderful issue as you slowly kind of build this mythology of how these cartoons could be real, why some of these cartoons want our main character, and how he could be special. I'm mostly curious to see what the mom's connection is to all of this. I feel like that's something that was only scratched upon here, but I want that big reveal because obviously she's keeping a lot of secrets, but I feel like they build the world really interestingly. It's a super meta book about erasing cartoons, and it's just a really fun world to dive into, and it's just another slam dunk from Tony Fleeks. If you're not reading their titles, go check all of them out because they've all been great. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, a book that this arc has been pleasantly surprising me, and that's Titans issue 12. I love this emotional core of the villain, where it's this kind of random story, right? It's just about this person who wanted to be a superhero, loved the Titans, became a cyborg, and was manipulated in between. The Titans find out that this person's kind of a good guy, but Raven is being a bad guy since the Beast World stuff, and that is bleeding a little bit more here, where Raven hurts this person, and now the Titans are gonna have to kind of deal with that and be like, okay, where's our best friend at? And I think it's building up the main story with Raven really well, all while telling this more emotional through line of a newer character that I'm sure will show up again. Usually Tom Taylor makes these characters and doesn't just make them one-offs, especially if they're giving so much of an emotional backstory. And also the art is just premier art for this book as well. It just feels like the flagship that Titans had always promised to be, as Justice League is not a title right now. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, a book that's just constantly my pick of the week, and I just continue to love it, and that is Wonder Woman issue 10. This issue, again, it started in a way where I was like, I don't know where this is going. Cheetah versus Wonder Woman, is it just going to be a versus issue? And then you got the Wonder Girls with such a fun dynamic. I love how Tom King writes these 3 girls. You never really get to see them interact. So when you're seeing them interact and show their different personalities and show them exploring the mythos of Wonder Woman, as they don't know how the invisible jet works, but they also talk about the simplicity of flight. It just works. And then what I really liked about Cheetah versus Wonder Woman, it is just a verse match, but it's this idea of the mirroring of the other big villains of the DC universe, which Tom King has done a wonderful job at saying, hey, it's been so obvious that Wonder Woman's been such a big character, but we always have these big essays about Batman and Superman. I want to tell you why I think Wonder Woman's amazing. And every issue is like an essay. It's an essay about, okay, this is why Wonder Woman's cool. This is why her character works and why she's stood the test of time. And same thing for her relationship with Cheetah, where it's like, this is how Batman and Joker is. This is how Superman and Lex Luthor is. Cheetah and Wonder Woman don't have that mirroring of each other. So what makes them tick? And the end result is that they don't need to mirror each other to be an interesting relationship. And the artwork just works so well for this book. Again, it goes back to what I said with She-Hulk. When you have collaborators that work with each other for a long time, it just feels so seamless and kinetic, and that's what happens here as well. So overall, I'm going to give that one 4 stars. That's my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite books were, and last week's pick of the week was, for the viewers, Batman Gotham at Gaslight. So here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.